Emma Carlisle was once praised as the school's most dedicated teacher, but when police stormed the hallways to seize her devices, the town realized too late that her perfect image was nothing more than a carefully crafted disguise. A quiet suburban town is shaken when a respected high school teacher, known for her strict classroom rules and polished reputation, begins attracting unusual attention. At first, nothing seemed out of place. She was praised for her dedication, often staying late after school, claiming she was helping students with assignments and college recommendations. Parents trusted her completely, believing she represented discipline and academic success. Her social media accounts portrayed a professional image, filled with motivational quotes and school achievements. Beneath that carefully crafted image, however, a different story was forming, one that no one around her suspected. Whispers started circulating among a few students, small comments made in private group chats about certain late-night messages that didn't seem appropriate. Screenshots existed, but most brushed them off as rumors, assuming teenagers were exaggerating. The atmosphere at the school remained calm, teachers continued their routines, and the administration had no idea that something serious was brewing just beneath the surface. The teacher maintained her composed attitude, smiling in hallways and enforcing rules about phone usage, all while hiding a growing digital trail that would soon lead to her downfall. A turning point came when a concerned student anonymously reported unusual behavior to the school counselor. The report mentioned that the teacher was giving attention that felt targeted and excessive. It wasn't about academics anymore. Something felt off, and it made at least one student uneasy enough to speak up quietly. At first, the counselor hesitated, unsure whether to escalate the matter without clear evidence. The teacher's record was spotless, and she was even being considered for an award for outstanding service. The contrast between her public persona and the hidden allegations created a disturbing tension. Without the teacher knowing, a quiet monitoring process began. The administration decided to observe before acting, hoping to determine whether the claims held any credibility. Meanwhile, parents continued to speak highly of her dedication, unaware that an investigation was forming in secret. The atmosphere around her remained normal on the surface, but a sense of unease had started to creep into the hallways. The teacher continued her routines, unaware that her actions were slowly being watched. The school, once peaceful and predictable, was unknowingly preparing for a scandal that would disrupt everything and expose a reality far different from the image she worked so hard to protect. The administration decided to document any unusual interactions before getting law enforcement involved. They began discreetly reviewing digital activity related to school accounts, focusing on any communication between staff and students conducted outside official platforms. During this quiet review, small inconsistencies started to appear. Logs showed that the teacher frequently messaged a particular student late at night through personal platforms rather than the school's monitored system. The timestamps were unusual, often past midnight, raising immediate concern. Still, without concrete proof of intent, they continued to monitor instead of confronting her directly. Meanwhile, the teacher remained confident, believing she had concealed everything behind carefully deleted messages and selective communication. She continued presenting herself as a mentor figure, giving extra attention to specific students under the excuse of academic support. Students noticed that she grew more protective over her phone and avoided leaving it unattended. Her behavior became more controlled, as if she was always anticipating a sudden question or interruption. Some students found her sudden intensity strange, but dismissed it, assuming it was just her commitment to maintaining perfect standards in her classroom. Then, a critical moment occurred when a student's parent noticed unusual phone behavior from their child. The teen appeared anxious whenever notifications appeared and avoided family conversations. Suspicious, the parent reviewed the device and found fragments of interactions that suggested something inappropriate was developing. Although the student had deleted most of the messages, a few notifications remained in the history, enough to suggest there was direct personal contact from the teacher. The parent didn't hesitate. Instead of going to the school, they went straight to the police with the device. Law enforcement took the matter seriously and immediately launched a digital forensic review. With proper authorization, they began retrieving deleted data and tracking the communication source. The teacher had no idea that her deleted messages could still be recovered and analyzed. As investigators pulled deeper into the digital records, they uncovered patterns showing behavior that went beyond professional boundaries. The school administration was informed that a formal investigation had begun, and a sense of urgency replaced the quiet monitoring. While classes continued and the school day went on as usual, a hidden investigation was rapidly building behind the scenes. The once trusted teacher was now the focus of a serious criminal inquiry, and every digital trace she left behind was about to become key evidence. Police investigators began working closely with digital forensic specialists to piece together the fragments of communication recovered from the student's device. Deleted files, hidden folders, and message histories were slowly reconstructed, revealing enough to confirm that the teacher had crossed professional lines. The timestamps painted a timeline of escalating behavior that clearly showed a pattern rather than a single lapse in judgment. Investigators noticed that the tone of the early messages appeared casual and supportive, but over time, they became increasingly personal and inappropriate in nature. This gradual shift demonstrated intentional grooming rather than accidental misconduct, strengthening the case. Once law enforcement gathered enough preliminary evidence, they coordinated quietly with the school administration to prepare for a controlled intervention. They wanted to catch the teacher off guard to prevent any attempt to destroy more evidence. The administration was instructed to maintain normal operations to avoid raising suspicion. During this time, the teacher went about her routine, completely unaware that her devices and personal accounts were being tracked under a legal warrant. Behind closed doors, officials studied her digital footprint, including multiple accounts she thought were untraceable. Investigators discovered that the teacher had created secondary profiles to avoid detection. These accounts were used to communicate outside school hours, often using subtle language to avoid leaving obvious traces. However, forensic tools detected linkages between usernames, IP addresses, and login locations, tying them directly back to her. Each digital move she made, even those she believed were erased, contributed to a growing archive of evidence. The illusion of secrecy she relied on was slowly collapsing. The police prepared for a surprise search and seizure operation. They knew timing would be critical to preserving remaining data that might still be stored on her personal devices. A plan was set to intercept her during school hours when her guard would be lowest and her devices easily accessible. Officers were assigned to enter the building discreetly without causing panic among students. The school administration was instructed to cooperate fully, but not to alert any staff members ahead of time. Around her, everything appeared normal. Students moved through hallways, teachers continued their lessons, and the atmosphere remained calm. Yet, just beneath that surface, a coordinated law enforcement action was moments away from unfolding, ready to bring an unexpected and dramatic shift to an otherwise ordinary school day. The day chosen for the intervention began like any other. Morning announcements played over the speakers, students settled into their seats, and teachers prepared their lesson plans. Unmarked vehicles arrived quietly and parked a short distance away from the school entrance. Plainclothes officers stepped out, blending in to avoid drawing attention. They coordinated with a small group of administrators who had been briefed earlier that morning under strict confidentiality. The plan required precision and calm to prevent panic or disruption among students. While the teacher was in her classroom supervising a routine activity, an administrator knocked on her door, requesting her presence in the office for what was described as a standard administrative matter. She complied without suspicion, leaving her phone and laptop on her desk as instructed, believing it to be a casual policy discussion. The moment she stepped into the hallway, officers moved swiftly into her classroom. They secured her devices and immediately began the process of isolating them to prevent remote wiping or data tampering. Students inside the classroom were told to continue their work as faculty quietly redirected them to another supervised area. In the administrative office, the teacher began to sense that something was off. The atmosphere was serious, and unfamiliar individuals were present. Without warning, law enforcement officers identified themselves and presented the warrant. The teacher's composed demeanor cracked for the first time. She attempted to question the situation, but officers proceeded with the legal process, informing her that she was under investigation. The sudden shift from respected educator to criminal suspect happened in seconds, and the shock registered visibly across her face. Simultaneously, forensic specialists began examining her confiscated devices on site, ensuring no external access could alter the stored data. Every message, backup file, and login session became part of a rapidly expanding case. Administrators, instructed to remain silent about details, observed the unfolding operation with disbelief. The school, once a place of routine and structured learning, had turned into a controlled investigative zone without most students realizing what had happened. Word began spreading through whispers as students noticed officers in the hallways and staff acting unusually restrained. Confusion and curiosity grew, but no official announcement was made. The administration wanted to prevent misinformation while law enforcement finalized the initial seizure of evidence. Within a short window of time, the teacher, who once stood as an authority figure, was escorted out of the building through a side exit, avoiding the main corridors. The day continued as scheduled, but a sense of unease lingered, signaling that something irreversible had just occurred. News of the arrest spread across the community before any official statement was released. Rumors circulated rapidly on social media, with students posting speculative messages and blurry photos of officers at the school. Parents began calling the administration, demanding answers, but the school could only confirm that law enforcement was handling a serious matter involving a staff member. Authorities advised restraint and requested that the school avoid releasing sensitive details until the investigation was complete. Despite the careful handling, the teacher's reputation began to collapse almost instantly. Investigators continued analyzing the seized devices, uncovering a chain of digital behavior that clearly demonstrated a breach of professional boundaries. The evidence revealed patterns of manipulation disguised as mentorship, confirming the calculated nature of her actions. Prosecutors prepared charges based on the inappropriate digital conduct, focusing on the misuse of authority and violation of trust involving a student. The teacher, once considered a model educator, now faced serious legal consequences. Her social media accounts were deactivated, her achievements removed from school platforms, and her name quickly became associated with scandal. As the case progressed, the community experienced a wave of disbelief and anger. Parents who had once praised her felt betrayed, questioning how someone so highly regarded could operate in secrecy for so long. The school district held a meeting to reassure families that additional safeguards and monitoring practices would be implemented. Staff members were reminded of communication policies, and new digital oversight measures were introduced to prevent similar incidents. The incident served as a harsh reminder that appearances could be misleading. Meanwhile, the teacher remained under strict legal supervision while awaiting trial. The confident persona she once displayed had vanished, replaced by a quiet, isolated existence. Former colleagues distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with the unfolding scandal. Students who once looked up to her now spoke of the situation with a mixture of shock and discomfort, unsure how to process the sudden fall of a once respected figure. When the final report was completed, it confirmed the full extent of the misconduct. The teacher faced formal charges, and the case moved into the public record. The community, once quiet and trusting, became far more cautious about the relationships between staff and students. What began as a noticed behavior hidden behind late-night messages ended in a widely publicized downfall. The school returned to routine over time, but the memory of the incident remained, serving as a lasting warning about the dangers of misused authority and the importance of vigilant oversight.